figures for these projects, mainly the municipal street project. And when we get down to utilities, the different projects in utilities that have to do with our water treatment plants that we have out there, that we're looking at a lot of ARPA funds. To start with, on this first page, the revenue page, from our first workshop, I did have to update the total ad valorem. You'll see that went down because those amounts went into the fire millage and the rainy day, because those weren't adjusted to our new millage rate, which is about 236,000 per mill. So you can kind of see that reflected in the fire millage. So what those went up, the total millage went down from 9 million. And I will point out the millage sheet here in just a little bit. The green highlighted line there is prior year municipal infrastructure funds. That's the internet sales. We just had 2 million in there, but the way these projects are going to hit, we're in year one, phase 1 and 2 have already, they're working on phase 1, phase 2. We should have a pre-construction meeting here pretty soon. Vince is going to get year 2, phase 1 out. So the way the timing is going to hit, we're going to have next year, we're going to have the first 2 projects finishing up, and year 2, phase 1 will kick in. So it's going to be over $4 million of funds going into paving streets. So that's a very good change to have, to let the citizens know over $4 million are going into paving. So if you remember your board packet last time, we have over $3.5 million in the infrastructure fund bank account. When that comes in, we put it in there. With the $2 million that we're going to get this next year, we'll have $5.5 million, so we'll have plenty to cover that. But we wanted to make sure the true revenue and true expense was showing up. So, I mean, any questions on that first page and the changes? We had to put those funds in there to be able to meet our expenses on the municipal street fund. So you will see that, I should have highlighted that, our general fund budget now goes up to $30,272,937. There was no change in the executive from the workshop. There was a change in the legislative. There was a request mentioned at the board, the workshop, for a 1,200 raise. Most of the staff are getting a 2,100, and we'll be discussing fire here in a little bit, but it was discussed for a 1,200 in the legislative, which is the alderman. And when that changed, it did change the state retirement and FICA and the medical. Any questions?
Yes, sir.
Alderman Young.
Alderman's pay raise is $6,000 a year, or is that right?
Well, it's a total, because 5 aldermen would get the 1,200, 2 are capped out, so it's a total of 6,000.
Right, so it's a total of 6, so that's what I'm saying, total of 6,000, before
Yes.
PERS, and before our health insurance, and before everything else. So if we get a pay raise, we're going to pay more into PERS, which we've been debating, and we hadn't even given all of our employees the raise that they've asked for. I don't see where this honorable board should be getting a pay raise if we can't do for the people that are working for the city. Why, what makes us deserve one?
Well, there's not PERS in y'all's category. The Alderman,
There's
it
not
does.
PERS in our PERS doesn't come out of our payroll? That's right, it's a benefit, correct?
Yeah, it is.
That's
mean,
what I was talking about, benefits. Yeah, health insurance, vision, wing, PERS, dental, all that's discounted. We ought to get all kinds of stuff. I still don't know why in the world we would think we need a $1,200 raise. All that's gonna do is kick you into a higher tax bracket.
Yeah,
Right.
it was mentioned, and I try to take into effect everything that's mentioned in the workshop. You will note that the workman's comp last year was over 7,500, and it's 291. So if you look down at the overall total change, it's only a little over 2,000. But because of that, workman's comp went down from 7,500 to $291.
You still ain't answered my question, why do the aldermen need a pay raise? I don't think we do. I don't see it. I don't think we need to be voting ourselves a pay raise, and we can't even give a pay raise to the people that are working, what they deserve. I mean, that money should be going to the animal shelter or the parks or something, but why are we giving it to us?
Please remember that Mr. Jim was just reflecting
I understand, I mean.
what was
I'm
brought up
asking-
here at the meeting. That's why he's bringing this up for the board to consider.
And that's what
It's
I'm.
nothing personal on him.
No, I understand that, sir. I'm not saying there's anything personal. I'm just asking a question. I mean, I understand that Mr. Bostic said something about it, but I don't agree with it. I don't think that other members of the board would agree with it, at least I hope not. I just don't think that it's deserving of this body. I just don't think we should have that in there. There's other places that money can go that is much more needed.
And this being a workshop, you know, I listened to the comments at the board meeting, and that's reflected in the changes from the last board meeting. If the board from this workshop wants to move in a different direction, that's why we have this workshop before we adopt the budget September 5th. So that would be totally up to the board.
Vote on this page before we go on.
Yes, sir, Mr. Jim, I understand that. Thank you, sir.
The alderman who wants a raise and who doesn't, so we can.
All right.
Before we go any further, I had to ask the counselor, the city attorney, should we vote on this page? And he said no. Maybe just a show of hands that how many are in favor of the budget for this page? Or did anybody have a comment to make? Because this is the workshop. This is when we iron these things out. If we don't agree, like Alderman Young said, this is the time to voice our alternatives to the funding. This is the time to do it. Alderman Geis.
As people know, we don't get a raise anyway.
Right, you and Alderman Bledsoe
So,
don't get a raise.
So I don't even know how much an alderman actually makes, because I've never had a full check. But I've never supported us getting a raise. Even if I could get one, I hadn't, just like you've taken pay cuts. So I agree with the alderman on this one.
Alderman Klein.
So, my question to Jim would be, well, I understand we came up with part of, for the raise, where's the other 2,000 come from? To cover that 6,000?
Well, all the changes from this one and the ones we're going to be discussing later on down that affected planning and some of the other changes that were brought up in the workshop, it came from the total bottom line from the fire department, from the I guess the total increase that they were looking at doing. because at the time, the revenue did not change, so the revenue only changed that 2001-10 400, but that is offset by the same amount in the 901 where the street paving was. So with the revenue remaining the same, what was changed in the other departments from the workshop had to come from some department, and a lot of the other departments were cut. And the street department already gave up 200,000. Police were trying to do their vehicles, and we took out their 300,000 for their vehicles, so I couldn't really cut it anywhere else.
Alderman Klein, yes, sir.
All of that we had already agreed upon the last meeting, pretty much.
Yeah, what we're going to be discussing today is the changes that came from the workshop.
Yeah, and really, the only question I really was having is that 2,000. Where would you pull that from? What department?
It's a balanced budget right now.
I think the Alderman's asking, where'd you get the 2,000?
I know he said he come up with the working comp, the savings of about 4,000 there.
Yeah, a total of about 89,000 came from the fire department.
You reduced the fire department's budget by 89,000, sir?
Correct.
All right, sir. Is that? Yes, sir. Alderman Dupree.
Why was $89,000 cut?
Pardon me?
Why was $89,000 cut from the fire department budget?
Because due to the workshop, there were changes made. You all approved Camino software, which was 100 and I forget the total of that software. So once you approved that, those funds had to come from somewhere.
So you took some out of every department to cover that?
I did not.
Just the fire department?
I did.
I disagree with that. Reason being, go ahead, I'll yield.
Wait, I don't know if Alderman Dupree was through with his remarks yet.
I'm not, but you can go ahead.
Alderman Klein.
Chief, are you good with that? Taking 89,000 from the department?
Well, we've worked on that, I guess, you want me to speak? Yeah, when we left the meeting last Tuesday night, the next morning, it was 89,000 cut. I called Jim. Jim said it was things that he had to do to make the budget balance again, but I'm not opposed to the cut of 89 as long as we've balanced the budget tonight. I guess that's the question where we go to when we get to my sheet, if we can live with what I proposed. And I know there's questions about raises, and I would like to present that if it's preventable or can be done. I can make my budget work. Yes,
Mayor.
I ask the board to please remember, there's just a finite, and the citizens out here and on watching, there's just a finite amount of money. The police department, public works, and fire were nice enough to give up some of their wish list to make the budget balance. You know, we can sit here and wish what all we want to, and every one of us know that we've only got a certain amount of dollars to work with. And these three departments especially work to help us make a balanced budget. Because that new software costs money that was essential to have. It was just a little bad timing, so to speak. Alderman Dupree.
So, Mr. Jim, I guess my question is, so you pulled money from the fire department to cover some of the software updates, is that correct?
Yes, what was approved at the last meeting.
Okay, so I'm in agreement that we should not, at this point now, if we're gonna take money, or propose to take money to give us a raise from the fire department, is that what I'm hearing? Then I would be totally against that.
Well, the way the budget works, every year we have to all get together and make it happen. I mean, there's been some years where, when I first started here in 2015, where they would turn in a budget and I would have to say, everybody cut it 5%.
Okay.
First 3 years I was here, there were no raises because we were holding checks just to make payroll. And every department sacrificed for every department. There's been just about every year we've pulled from one department to make another department's request happen.
So that's what we did here, last workshop, at the request of the board getting a raise. You took some money from the fire department to put it in this line item for us,
Took it from the proposed budget.
but would it take away from the fire department any at all?
You can ask Mr. David that.
Chief? I'm just trying to get
I
us.
guess I'm gonna have to be, there was $89,000 cut from Tuesday night to Monday morning. I don't know where the money went, where the money was supposed to go. I don't know. I just know that it was cut from the budget. I never really met with Jim. I've never had a workshop. This is probably one of the, I hate to say it, but one of the worst meetings I've ever had about, there was never, ever a sit-down workshop between the department head and the fire department. Now, I don't know about the other departments. They might have met one-on-one, but I never met with Jim about my budget. I was just slanted, this is what we're gonna do, and then I presented it. I did present to Jim in the beginning, 7.2 million. He threw it back, the mayor said, cut it, don't put any salaries in there, just do what you gotta have for equipment. I resubmitted that. And then when it came to me at 7.1 the other night, I didn't even know how all that got in there, but I was okay with that at that time. So, I'm not here to, I don't know where the 89,000 went, and I'm okay with the budget we have before us tonight. If we can make this work, please don't change me anymore, and we will make this budget work in the fire department for 23-24. That's all I can answer tonight.
Chief, I know that you want to do some promotions. With promotions come pay raises. Is that already in the budget for this to happen, Mr. Jim?
Yes.
Yes, you received it.
It's in there, but for me to move these people into promotions for the ladder truck, but they will be senior people that move to the ladder truck. And I was gonna cover that when it got to my turn, so, I mean,
Well-
we'll go over that in a little bit.
You know, I just, I know that we say no pay raises after the budget, so I want to make sure that this is already on paper for this to happen for you later.
Well, it'll be promotions, it comes just like police promotions, when they come back from the academy.
All right.
Alderman Dupree, you know, if you skip to the fire department, I know you're asking about what's taken. If you look at what their budget was last year and what is this year, it's 1,208,274 more this year than it was last year. So it's over $1.2 million higher.
More than last year, but you
Yes.
cut 89,000, so they're still above and beyond.
Yeah, what you have to look at is, look at last year's budget and all of it, and then see the department heads send in their proposed budget, which, you know, they're gonna wish, and just like every one of us up here were, if we were a department, we're gonna wish. And then the job is to come back, Mr. Robinson and everything, is to come back and say, okay, this is how much money we have. Let's see what we can live with, what we can do. And like the fire department, instead of saying it took away 89,000, they're getting over $1 million more than they had last year.
Yeah, that's what I
Yeah.
was just saying.
Yes,
That's
sir.
what I was asking. Yeah, okay, that's, yeah.
All right, so if, in the interest of not being here till 11:30 like we were the last time, Alderman,
Mayor,
Yes, sir.
we're on the same track. Could we just see who's interested in giving us a raise and who's not and
that's
move
what I was
on?
gonna say, let's move on. We've gotten off of this page and we're all We're all over the place.
Mayor, just,
Alderman, yes, sir.
this is where I'm going with it, because if it's going to take away from the fire department one dime, then I wouldn't be wanting a raise. But if it doesn't affect them at all, it doesn't affect anybody else. We haven't had a raise since 2017. Well, we haven't been here, but that long. I mean, I wouldn't want to get a pay raise if it hurts somebody else. But if it doesn't hurt anybody else, what's the problem with it?
Can I just ask for a show of hands? That'd be legal. All right, so we can move on, so we know what to do with this page. If those in favor of the $1,200, please just have a show of hands. 1, 2. Those opposed, show of hands, please. 1. Alderman Geis, you did it anyway. 1, 2. What was your vote, ma'am? Well, that leaves 2-2 then. 3, but Alderman Geis not getting a raise anyway. So I don't know whether to count his vote either. Yeah, what, Mr. Billy, want to split the baby? Is that what you want to do?
I don't know, and extension usually goes with a majority, and there's no majority yet, according to the mayor.
I've never been in this situation before. I don't know what's legal and what's not legal. All right, because if those 2 don't vote, that leaves 5. We've got 2, and then 1 that's abstaining.
Mayor, can I say something?
Yes, sure.
I just want to speak on it. I'm really conflicted by it because in my day-to-day job, if there was to be a raise, everyone would get the same raise. And I do understand that we're in a different situation, and I understand both sides. So it's really hard for me to make a decision on what is right. So that's why I say
Okay.
I abstain from
Well, to explain it to everyone, Alderman Bledsoe and Alderman Geis are technically retired, so they don't get a full salary. They actually don't get much. They're just serving, and everybody up here for what they do doesn't get much. So,
Mayor, I mean, I will say, if you look at Miss AJ's salary comparison that she does for all the positions, she adds the alderman positions in there. A $1,200 raise will keep you, if you're comparing it like we're going to be talking about here with the fire, and like we've talked about with the police in the past, it keeps you in line with the other aldermen in the city, and actually still below Olive Branch and South Haven, which is a lot bigger budget, but it keeps you in line with Hernando.
thank you, sir. As everyone, the department heads knows, I don't worry about whether we're in line with the other cities, because we have our money to work with. We don't have a $100 million budget, as some of our sister cities are fortunate to have. We have to work with the money we have. So saying, well, they make this at that city doesn't carry a whole lot of weight with me, because we don't have that city's funds. We just try to do as much as we can with what we have, and you, members of this board, have done an excellent job. The city's never been in as financial a good a shape as y'all have put it into. And I want to thank you for it, and I commend you for it. But I just want the audience to know we can only work with the money we have. That's it. All right. So, did you have something to say? I saw you lean forward. You want to help me out here?
No, Mayor, I'm afraid I'm going to put you on the spot as opposed to helping you out. It sounds like if a motion were made later to approve pay raises for aldermen, it would be a 2-2 vote with 3 abstentions. So that's going to put you on the spot of breaking the tie.
I was afraid you would think of that. I feared that. All right, Alderman Bledsoe had his hand up first, I think.
I think it's 3-2.
The mayor pointed out that Alderman Geis, really, he counted his as an abstention since he doesn't benefit one way or another from it.
I would say, that I am,
What, look,
without a raise or not, I am responsible voting for this budget. And those raises are part of that budget. So it may not be fair, that I'm voting against something that I couldn't get anyway. But I would be voting that way regardless, because I feel fortunate. I get insurance out of this, which I can't even put a dollar sign on. But that's not why I ran for office. I didn't run for office and made, a lot of money.
Right, none of us did.
No, it's not a full-time job, even though I do get a lot of calls. So it's not, but I understand your point.
Mayor, sounds like it's 3-2 no with 2 abstentions. So looks like we can go back to the original numbers on this page and move along.
Thank you, sir. If any of y'all ever seen that movie Miracle on 34th Street, where they bring in all the mail and throw it on the judge's desk, now I know how that judge felt. All right, so strike out the raise for the alderman, please, Mr. Jim. That will bring it
All
down
right.
to 125,000.
Well, yeah, I'll move on.
Then you
and-
got to
and
move
make
all the other things down too.
No, I'll make a suggestion at the end.
Thank you,
I'm
Mr.
going to
Billy.
move on to judicial. There was no change talked about in the meeting, so there's no change there. We did discuss a vehicle and checking with Landers for the finance. That was bumped up a few thousand because the state contract is going to come in a lot higher than 30.
Excuse me if I may, on the
Yes.
judicial page, I spoke with Ms. Tara this afternoon. She's fine with this. She's over there packing. If anybody wants to talk to her, they're moving. The county is nice enough to let us use the old Justice Court building in South Haven. And so our court will be up there, and Mrs. AJ's office will be up there until they get through with the renovations here. But we want to thank the county for letting us use the use of that building. But Ms. Tara said she was very content with her budget the way it is. And if anybody wanted to question her, she's right past that door if y'all want to get her. Anybody want to? All right, move on, Mr. Jim.
Okay, that was judicial. Finance, it was discussed, and the plan to move the existing vehicle down to IT, so both Daniel and Jonathan will have a reliable vehicle to get around to the different sites and locations that they serve. And with the state contract price going up, that was bumped up a little bit in the financial line for the administrative and mayor vehicle. We do have plans, actually they got the mayor's vehicle running, and Mr. Glenn, is that what you're driving? Yes, sir. Okay. The mayor's vehicle is an old Mercury or a Crown Vic?
Mercury.
Okay. And they had to do some work on it to get it running. Any questions on financial? The planning, you'll see the highlighted area for professional services. That's the additional fees that was approved last board meeting for the Camino software that they are proposing to try to implement this next year for the planning and code. Any questions on planning? That went,
Anyone? Anyone?
that went from 84,000 to 159,200. There was no change in the police department.
Chief, I want to thank you for working with everybody to help us get a balanced budget. It was it's a tough year coming up, and I thank you for doing that. Did you have any comments to the board? Are you satisfied this figure you can give top quality protection and service to the citizens, just like you're doing now with this figure?
Yes, sir, as long as which Mr. Jim and I had spoke already about our vehicle line, as long as we're able to get that ironed out with our surplus money and everything going forward. That was our biggest cut, was the money out of the vehicles, with the assumption that we'll be able to get them bought before October 1st.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for Chief Pullen? Mr. Jim, onward, please, sir.
Yeah, I did want to say thank you. This is one of the first times that working with Chief Poland, it was great to understand theirs in a little more detail, more than we have. Both Miss AJ and I met with them, and we got a better understanding of how their budget, and you can see it's only like a 27,000 increase from last year's budget. Fire department, we did have, the changes in the budget. It did, bottom line, from what you saw, did not change. I put that in my email. Bottom line is $7,020,197. The upper numbers in yellow, Chief Linville did want to make some adjustments on those. The main salary line from your last, the budget workshop, that did increase. But there was a decrease in contract personnel that had 21,000. Now it's 3,500. That's one of the bigger changes, and the overtime went down from 75,500 to 60,000. The other items had to change slightly just because when you change salary figures, the FICA and PERS and everything changes. But Chief Linville can speak in more detail on that. And I did give you, in the email, I did give you the breakdown of the proposed salaries.
The alderman received the proposed salaries?
Yes.
They did. Alderman Bledsoe?
He keeps saying email. I never got an email.
Did everybody else get an email? Who did not get an email? Just you, Alderman Bledsoe?
Did you get one?
I can't access my email.
Can't
I
access.
had someone send it to me.
Oh, so you're aware of the figures in it?
Yes.
All right, thank you, sir. All right, so will somebody share that page with Alderman Bledsoe? Why are you not getting one? Oh, if you would. Yes, sir, if that's all right with you.
Mayor, my email has been messed up. They fixed it a couple times, and it goes away.
Mine don't work at home except on a tablet.
Well, I didn't get an email, so that's all I can say.
Well, I actually sent it to both of your emails, the new one and the old one.
Ain't on here. Hey,
No, sir.
Yeah.
In case there's something I'm wrong on.
Lord of mercy. The magnifying glass.
He said, you don't have to worry about it, we're gonna do it together.
I know the sheet that you look at with all the personnel, that's real fine, but that's where the big numbers come on the thing, and then in the first sheet that came out, it was 485 for medical and insurance and vision. So when we ran this number and it come out on the spreadsheet, it went to 417 change, but I rounded off to 417,728. I did add a little bit there. That was one of the biggest changes that moved money up into the salary. And then that last sheet that I give you is a comparison sheet, and I'm just trying to get somewhere in the ballpark with the other keep the staff and keep the fire department on a steady go. I look at my staff today and I kind of say between the chief and the admin assistant, the battalion chiefs and all of them, everybody there has been here 17 years to 29 years, okay? And I will have to say that I'm an old guy. But the lieutenants have been, they've been here from 8 years to 26 years on these lieutenants. And there's 9 of them in those positions. And then if you get drivers, they've been here 4 years to 13 years. So then the rest of them coming in with the paramedics and all that, there's stuff to do. But it's the seniority of the personnel that's been there, and some of the ones on the fire department's been there a long time. I'm not here to say, if we don't give them a raise, they're walking out the door. I'm just trying to be competitive. We do lose a lot of people, but we lose them, it's usually the newer ones that's looking for the glory to go somewhere else. But these people deserve these raises, and we fought this raise probably for the last 7 or 8 years, and somehow or another, we always get the short end of the stick. In this budget right now that we're speaking about, these raises could go in effect October 1, and I will still have staff to bring in the truck company in 6 months. I won't start it off in October, but we'll have it within 6 months and get it manned. But we've got 3 months, as you've seen it here today. We have 3 days next week for training, we have 3 days in September for the truck. That's 8-hour mandatory hours for each one of those guys to go through the training before we turn them loose with the buttons to get out there and use this truck. It's just gonna take some time. And then we want to promote the ones that have been here to take care of that. The ones that's got seniority, the ones that wanna be on that truck, and the ones that have the training to take care of that. And then me promote within, and then we'll go back in about March and April, hire 6 new firefighters and start getting them ready to go to the academy. I've got 3 that's going through now, between now and the end of the year, so it is a growing pain, but we always do that. And then on my overtime, this year, we've cut out a lot of overtime because we're up-staffed. But when you're up-staffed, you don't have to have overtime. And I mean, that's just the way that works. And if I have any questions, or if you have any questions for me, I'm here just trying to get what I feel like is due to the fire department. It's been that way for a long time. We have fought this for a while, so.
I will admit that the fire department for several years has always been shorted on this. We've had to work around some other problems, and the fire department and the personnel have graciously worked with the city and this board to solve those problems. If you haven't seen the new fire truck, please go out there and look. It's
It's gone now.
It's
They didn't
gone?
take it back. I didn't want to take
They
it.
didn't repossess it, did they? No. All right.
I just tell this,
Oh,
Mr. Jim, they want to deliver it Friday, they want the check.
Alderman Johnson.
He asked me
Oh.
about that, so.
I thought, I saw you moving your mic. I thought, Alderman Dupree.
I haven't seen a comparison list this year like we got last year. I don't know if I just missed it or
It's
whatever.
up there with you now on the back.
Oh, it's on the back sheet, okay. So, I know our budget's smaller than the other folks, but with your proposal, will it get us even in the ballpark of the other cities, even Hernando?
Yes. We'll be in line with some of the other cities, some of them we may be a little over in some areas, we're gonna be in some
Okay, I
other
see
areas.
this now.
I laid out the thing, it's like, there's not a lot of difference when you start with a EMT driver to a firefighter. There's not a lot of pay difference in that scale when you look at it. There's a few $1,000s as you move up in rank, but it's just not a lot of money there for me to go after or whatever. But in some cases, there is some big raises, and in other cases, there's some $3,000, $2,600 raises versus $2,100. So in some ballpark figure, 2,100 is not too bad in some of them. But it is in the other end where some of them need to move up. But the raises would go in effect in October, like everybody else's raises is the way the budget is figured. But we would not bring in the new staff until March. You would start seeing firemen come through here to be hired. But for me to just pop out
Alderman Dupree.
How hard is it to get somebody hired? Do you have enough applications on your desk?
Oh, I have enough applications on my desk. I'm not gonna say I'm hiring all them people on my desk, but I have enough applications right
Well,
now.
the reason I ask is
We could
because,
hire 3 tomorrow probably if I went out and tried out.
yeah, I know for a long time, we've had a problem in the police department, not enough money. Chief Bulling's done a great job bringing on folks here now. So I guess what I'm saying is it the money that, well, you said you had a lot of applications.
Well, I
But
can
the
get
quality,
applications.
but the quality of the personnel
But,
that you wanna bring in, that's what the police department had issues
and
with.
I'm sure it's the same thing in the police department, but you know, if, for me to go out right now, I'd probably spend $14,000-15,000 on everybody we hire, time we get them outfitted in turnouts, their helmet, their boots, their gear, all that's $5,000-6,000. Then you're gonna send them to the academy, it's $100 physical to get that done. Then we gotta send them to the academy for 7 weeks. There's expenses. There's one at the academy left out Sunday. He's going through this next 7 weeks, and then I have 2 lined up to go in October. And when they get through, by the end of the year, I have nobody in the fire department that's not certified, okay? So we have that timeline. They give you about 1 year of time you hire them, they want them through the fire academy. But
Fire
during
academy
that
is 7 weeks,
Huh?
7 weeks.
Police academy, I believe, is 9, 12.
It used to be 10.
Well, I knew it, no, but I know it's a lot longer for the police academy. But that was one of the things that, you know, and I'm not, you know, just like the paramedics and everything else, when we hire them, you know, they gotta be a paramedic. I have a paramedic opening right now, and I had no firefighter opening until last board meeting. 15th, we had one of ours that switched over to PD. He starts in the police academy, I believe, in September, so. And that's a great thing, if that young man wants to be a policeman, maybe he'll make that great move for the police department. So I'm not here to hold him back by no means. I encourage him to chase after what he wanted to become. He's been a fireman for the last 10 or 12 years. I think I've trained him to be a police officer now.
So, now he doesn't have to go pay the fees, does
You
he?
gotta pay the fee. But is there any other questions? I mean, like I said,
Anybody down here?
I'm working off the budget sheet that we currently have. I'm not asking for any other money. And I do see where Jim pulled the money, and I see where he had to have it for other things, and I'm not here to say that he didn't, but, you know, it was just kind of I guess a stick when you say, do you work from this budget, and it goes down 89,000.
But it's still $1 million more than last year.
But it's still more, I get that, but we also bringing in a new ladder truck, also putting in new people on that. You know, it was a growing pain to get that 3rd ambulance up. Now it's the growing pain to get this ladder truck up. But, you know, I feel like this time next year, we'll be pretty close to say that we'll get this city down to a 3 grading. But it also goes over your training, your personnel, your manpower, and how you're gonna work it, not cut down overtime. You gotta pull it down.
Well, if you drop it down to a 3, it's gonna save everybody, homeowners and businesses, a lot of money.
Businesses mainly on that, but homeowners too.
Alderman Bostic.
Yeah, I had a couple of quick questions, and hopefully I can get an understanding of this. First off, you have 63 employees, correct? Give or take?
We have 62 right now.
Let's just say 63, that's what I did my math on, that's what I was told. Jim, with the pay raises that he's proposing to do, I'm not sure that you would have that total with you right now of those 63 employees, what that total amount of money would be.
Well, I mean, I could add that column right there.
That's the annual rate of now, I'm talking about with the proposed for all 63 employees.
Oh, okay, yeah.
For those plus the 6 new ones too.
Okay, I'm just asking. I know we had talked about when we started this budget that everybody was gonna get $2,100 across the board at every employee in the city. And with 63 employees, that comes to $132,300.
Yeah, it went from 4,249 to 4,316, whatever that is.
Yeah, Alderman Bostic, it would be roughly $633,000.
So we're looking at close to 600 and what?
33,000.
So we took from the police department, we took from public works to give raises that are 3 times more than anybody else in the city.
Well, and to add to what Chief Poland said, we did remove that 300,000, but we are working with Landers to order those vehicles that are going to take that 300,000 out of this year's budget. The really only loss, complete loss, Stephen did give up. He was looking at a street vacuum, closest thing to Mr. Tommy's street sweeper. He was looking at a street vacuum that he was going to do in the street department, and just decided to hold that off.
So we have $2,100 for all the rest of the employees in the city, and then we're going to approve. I trying to do that math and being fair, it's hard for me to do that, Chief Linville. I mean, I understand you want to pay your people, but that's an astronomical amount of money to put into fire. Not to say that we need it, and they may deserve it, but I just don't think that's the right thing to do across the board, to do $2,100 per employee. And I didn't want to get into these figures individually because I broke it down on what you would be making per month and all of that. You know, that's maybe something we need to talk behind an executive session, but instead of in a public meeting like this. But it'd be very difficult for me to approve 132,000 and then bump it up. I can do the 132,000 because that's what the 2,100 is for 63 employees. But when it goes to 600,000, that's different. 2,100 times 63 is 132,000. He said the total of what you're proposing for a raise is 600,000.
That's with the 21 added into it.
Right, well, even that, you're still looking at $400,000 more. That's just tough for me to prove.
Mayor?
Alderman Young.
Alderman Bostic is right, but I think what we're missing here is that everybody else does 2,108 hours a year. Chief, how many hours does the fire department pull a year?
Well, my budget's based off of 3,158, but that covers their overtime that they gotta work, and their holiday pay, and all that's figured into that.
And
That number, it's all figured into that, their overtime,
and
they're gonna work a lot more hours. They work anywhere from 72 to 120 hours, 96 hours to 144 hours every 2 weeks. Some weeks
Right.
they work 6 days, some weeks they work 5 days, some weeks they work 4 days. So that's times 24. So their overtime is already figured into that top number. So the other number that says overtime is only for non-budgeted overtime, where somebody might have came in and filled a shift because 2 people were out sick, or somebody had a problem, and this, that, and the other. But now that we have the staff up, they basically got to go down 4 men before they call in overtime.
Right.
We detail from one station to another to cover that.
Okay. The other part of this is, last year, and nothing against you, Chief Pullen, y'all got what y'all deserved last year. Absolutely did. And I think that was noted by the mayor a few minutes ago about how the fire department has been sort of on the short end of the stick several times. And sort of to follow on the show of hands, who else is going to run into a burning house and save somebody for $16.18? I don't know anybody that's going to pull up in front of a house that's being burglarized for $16.18. These men and women do an outstanding job, and I know you know that, Alderman, and that's not what you're arguing. You're arguing about the money. But we're not talking apples to apples on that. You're talking another, the hours are different, a lot of different things, and they've been shorted, and the city is in pretty decent financials. Are we at where we can do everything? No. Next year, will we be able to cut it back or do more? I don't know yet. We're working on it. We're trying to push a lot of dirt and build a lot of buildings, get some new revenue. I don't know where we'll be a year from now. I know we gotta try to figure out in the fire department, next thing is figure out how we're gonna buy an ambulance for $210,000. I ain't figured that one out yet. But the number is the number, and I think it's a good number. It brings you right up there. I mean, if you look across, and I understand, Mayor, I understand what you're saying about the other cities. I understand, and we gotta look at Horn Lake. And I agree with that 1,000%, because the numbers that we're talking about fit in Horn Lake's budget right now. It's a balanced budget.
Yes, sir.
So this is balanced, so I think it's, Chief, I want to commend you and everybody in your fire department, your upper lieutenants, and even your deputy chief, dadgummit. But they've all sharpened their pencils, and I appreciate it. You got a nice new truck out there, thanks to this board. Jim, you got to write a check. But the police department, fire department are two of the biggest things this city's got to provide. That's what state tells us we got to do, and that's ethically what we're supposed to do. So I think it's a good budget. I like the numbers. Thank you, Chief.
Anyone else? Alderman Bostic.
Yeah, David, an administrative assistant, what hours do they work?
Monday through Friday, but my administrative assistant, as you look on that sheet, she's kind of the EMS manager, you want to call it. I don't have EMS supervisor. She takes care of a lot of stuff on that ambulance every day. She does the billing. She makes sure the billing company has everything.
Right, I understand that, but I'm saying, but she works a 40-hour work week.
Just like I do, yes, sir.
So you work a 40-hour work week.
That's my schedule.
Your deputy chief works a 40-hour work week.
Plus callback. If we have
And inspector works 40 hours a week.
callback.
Battalion chief makes 40 hours a week. So battalion chief down. So why wouldn't you give the money to all of them instead of cramming it all on the top of ones that only work 40 hours a week? You're looking at giving a administrative assistant over a $14,000 raise a year?
Trying to be in line with the other cities and the other areas in here. I'm just trying to follow that guideline of where they're at paying. What do they pay their EMS supervisor that works 40 hours a week? They don't work 72 hours either, and they do that job, but that is that job that they have to do. I don't work 40 hours a week, but I may be on call all the time. I answer calls, I do things that I need to do, whether I'm at work or not work. The battalion chiefs come back sometimes at night, if they're name off duty, we do an admin page for major structure.
But your answer to Alderman Young and his argument was the amount of hours, and you went into this amount of hours and this amount of hours, but the top 4 positions you have on here total 35, 40, over $60,000 a year raise in people that work 40-hour work week. Not to say that you're not called back.
Well, I'm not saying that either, but you're gonna pay, if you move the others up, you can pay the others more.
I mean, I'd rather pay the guy that's gonna be going in there and fighting that fire $30 an hour, and if I was in your position, it ain't all about what the another city's making. It's about the guys that are doing the work on the ground here, and they can move up and get more pay. But the argument was the amount of hours, when it's, like I said, it's just another example. I don't understand why you would move that amount of money on the top line when it took away from other departments that they could have used that money somewhere else too. That's just my thoughts.
Anyone else? Alderman Bledsoe.
One thing on here, the people you lose the most, is probably paramedics. I think they need to boost it pretty good, maybe. You might keep them for a little bit.
Alderman Geis.
When I've been looking at the salaries, the ones that I see that seem to be lacking the most is your battalion chief is way out of whack as far as making less, unless what I'm looking at's wrong. Your battalion chiefs makes probably less than all the cities as far as their pay. It's a lot less. And to me, I'd say they're probably like your shift commanders on the police department. They're the ones out there actually doing the heavy lifting, directly supervising and all that. And your paramedics and your, seems to be what we're replacing almost every board meeting. I think those two definitely need to be looked at. As far as the upper administration, that's a lot of money up there. Not to say that you guys don't deserve it and don't do a good job, because you do. But I have a difficult time giving a paramedic or that battalion chief a less of a raise when they actually need it more than the people at the top. You know, I looked at, currently the Hernando fire chief makes, what, $91,154. You're making $85,404. I don't know his experience or her experience or how long they've been there. You know, that kind of stuff does matter, which is a difference of about $5,750 a year between what you're making and what that one's making. The police department, which I see that a little different. We were 14 officers short. We were hemorrhaging officers. And even with the proposal last year was, and I remember us arguing this back and forth, not you, that a lot of those raises need to go to the people at the bottom. And that's what we did. We did have to raise the upper administration some, so you didn't have lieutenants and captains making more than chiefs and deputy chiefs. But the Hernando police chief makes $99,500. Our police chief makes $93,600, which is a difference of $5,900. So even with the little bit of a raise we gave the chief last year, they're still significantly lower than the Hernando police chief. And I agree that we don't need to necessarily look at that all the time. But with your raise, if we give you that $10,275, that will put you at $95,680, which would be more than the Hernando chief and more than the police chief, if my math is correct.
I don't know about all the other cities. I don't know what
Yes, sir.
raises are coming with the other cities.
Exactly.
I've only heard that Hernando was proposing 4%.
Yes, sir.
So that's another
You know.
3,800 that'll go to the chief fire. So that's kind of that same thing here. I mean, I understand, and I'm not trying to point
Yes,
to
sir.
the chief, because Chief Pullen does a great job, and I understand she makes 93 or whatever it was, and that I make 85. But that's the 85 to 95. That's about where she's coming. I think that's about where it's going to be after October 1 with the $2,100, and the same thing with the police down there, and the same thing with the deputy chiefs is where they're at. We kind of looked at that same thing of that even and everything. I did look at that. I
Yes.
even looked at the admin assistant from police to fire, and that's about where that's coming in at. You wanted to know where that number come from. That's about where it come from. But I am still comparing this for the fire department.
Yes, sir.
Because I understand the police has got their job, the fire department's got their job. Do we need to be paid the same apple? Probably not, but we still need to split it in some ways so everybody can
Yes.
fair.
Yes, sir. And
Or treated fairly.
you know, I do come from a law enforcement background, as you know.
Yes,
But that's also emergency services, so that's, all of it is important to me. But long as I've remembered, the reason why firemen make less per hour is because of the hours that you get paid for. And a lot of those hours are spent in a firehouse, sleeping or doing whatever. So that's why it's less, because if you paid a fireman the same hourly rate as a police officer, the fireman would end up making double the salary.
You're right. That's the
Yes,
reason we're not looking
that's
at
why
fire
you
department.
don't. So I
And
guess to shorten what I'm saying here, I don't have an issue with giving you and those top three a raise comparable, to get it up comparable to Hernando. but not to pass, because I don't know of any city where the fire chief makes more than the police chief, or the deputy fire chief makes more than the deputy police chief. We would be out of whack, which puts us back next year with people wanting raises to get back up where they should be. So your lower one, I really wish you would look at the paramedic and those battalion chiefs, because I think particularly those two are really lacking. And on those top three there, I'm not opposed to an increase, but not necessarily passing Hernando, but getting close there. That's just my personal opinion. And it's nothing against the fire department, because last year you didn't request a big raise because you knew we were trying to get what the issue was in the police department. So I'm not opposed to that. Just I think those top three are a little high. That's just my opinion. So.
Well, like I said, I was looking at that whole comparison sheet for what, and I did go there. I looked at all the fire sheets, and that's where I stayed. But I also looked back at what police lieutenants was making salary-wise. We're still not above them, but we're trying to be close. My lieutenants have a job out there on the street just like everybody else, and I don't take away from the police. I'm not taking away from the fire side.
Yes.
But, you know, we're on the same street out there at the same wreck or the same house fire, and whether it's a shooting or a wreck, and the patients and the paramedic, and I am willing to go back and try to come back with something different if you get in this board's recommendation on that.
Yes, sir.
But I still say if you don't pay your upper management, you're gonna have the same thing when you give $2,100 a year. It brings the lower people above your other people, so, you know, your supervisors at some point, they're just cheaper to just ride the back of a fire truck instead of being drivers.
Well, that's why I mentioned particularly the battalion chiefs. I personally, in my opinion, instead of a $95,000 raise, getting up around 90 or 89, that's nothing to be upset about. Raising the deputy chief from 77 up to 84, 85, I don't think would be something people would be upset about either. And taking that's going over and putting that into your paramedics and those battalion chiefs, I don't think that's going to upset your rank and file firemen there and paramedics. I don't. You've served the city a long time, and I don't have an issue with getting you up to close to where Hernando is, or even matching it. But exceeding that, I do.
Well, like I said, I was looking at the standpoint of when they get their raise, then
Yeah,
I'm
sure.
still
Yeah.
5 or 6% below that. I'm 4,000 or 5,000 below that if they get a $4,000 raise. But
Yes.
I'm not here to try to argue that. I told the mayor, at some point, I really don't even need a raise, because I'm probably not gonna be here much longer as it is, so, on my standpoint, if you told me no raise, I'm fine. I'm not quitting, but I might start shutting that truck down quick.
So that's
And
my.
that's the other thing that, and I do say this, and I don't know, and I'm on point for Ms. Johnson here. There's other cities out there, we don't have a pub ed officer, but I have firemen that are willing to go out to these schools and work with these kids, and they spend time. But, we probably do more pub ed than any city in DeSoto County. So these guys do a lot more than they ever think about they have to do. Some days I get asked, why do we even fool with this? Well, I don't know some days, so I'm just telling you where I sat tonight. Maybe I just need to quit doing so much.
No,
If I quit doing it,
no.
there's no other city that goes to Earth Day and puts up the big trailer and sets people out there and tries to educate kids. We was asked this year to go to Landry Center, we went over with the Girl Scouts. We were the only fire department there with Girl Scouts, but we did it, and we set up, and we give out brochures and did fire safety for all those kids that come up and ask. But, at some point, you do get to a point, you know what, just, if you quit it, maybe we get a raise. I don't know.
Well, I don't think the board denies that y'all do a great, the fire department goes out of its way. You go down to the supermarket, they'll take the fire truck to go to the supermarket. That's good publicity. Our citizens relate to the fire department. Every one of y'all know whenever you see something, the fire department is there, publicity-wise. And the police department under Chief Pullen are doing much, much more of that. And that's what it takes in today's society, is for the citizens to be able to relate to the first responders and to the governmental employees. We're employees. Technically, we're elected officials, but basically, we're employees, let's just face it. And we've got to build up that trust and that communication between the citizens and the government, because it's surely falling apart on a national scale. It's our responsibility to hold it where we can, and the only place we can hold it is here. And so I agree that the first responders put their lives out there. How many EMT and paramedics do you have? Going back to what Alderman Guy said.
We have about 16.
16.
It's almost.
So even if you cut those,
6 or 7 on each shift, so
if you cut those top 4 positions, all right, let's just say you made it 92,000 on the chief, so you've saved 4,000. And you made it 85 or 86 on the deputy chief, that'd be what, 3,000? And on the, what's that, fire and EMS administrator, if you brought it up to 55 or 54, that would be 9K. You got 3 deputy chiefs up here, 3 battalion chiefs, hadn't you? 3 battalion chiefs. So just those top 4, like Alderman Boster was talking about, you're not talking about saving but about $16,000 or $17,000, and to split it between 15 or 16 people. But that's still an additional $1,000 apiece.
that's right.
It's still an additional $1,000 apiece. Now, I know, respectfully disagree with you, but the other day, Battalion White, you and Jim and I sat in this very room, so we did talk. It wasn't that you never had a chance to talk with us. You just forgot about it when we were talking.
We talked about it then. We didn't do any workshops prior to the meeting.
No, but we sat right in here and talked about it, and I have your figures right here. In fact, I think, Jim, is that the figures you sent out to the board?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And I will mention that this year we did things a little bit differently. We gave the instructions to all staff, no raises. Just come back, no raises, put in your expenses that you're projecting. Then we came back and said 2,100. You know, the years that we have more extensive workshops are the years that everybody's wanting to just kind of do their own thing with their budgets. But we had restrictions this year, started out no raises, then 2,100. So, you know, it's not like we don't do this where we have workshops. We just had strict requirements that we were looking at this year. And that's why we didn't have extensive workshops. I mean, the year Drew had a lot of things that he had plans for. We had several meetings because he wanted to spell out the different plans. I mean, this year we didn't have that option. We needed to keep everything flat because of the lack of funds. So that's just why we didn't have the extensive workshops that we've had in years past.
And I think this worked better. You might not think it right now, but what that meant was the necessities came first. Just like when every one of us do our budgets at home, what have we got left over to work with after we pay for the food and electricity? So the necessities came first. And I sat right here and said, I'm not worried about comparing this to other cities, which really and truly, the bottom line, I'm not. But I want to be fair, and I don't want for us to lose qualified people. Surely, as Alderman Geis said, there's a compromise in here between these figures. And small though they may be, it's something. Alderman Klein.
Basically, what you figured is probably, Hernandez gonna be giving them maybe 4%. That's probably what represents the difference.
I haven't really checked with all of them, but that's what was told to me from Hernando. They looked at a 4%. I haven't called any of the other cities or asked any questions, and they may or may not. That's an alderman board decision, but I think they were looking at a 4% over the whole city. But I'm not here to tell you that's true or not true, and I don't want to be put on record for that. But that's my thing on that.
Alderman Johnson.
Chief, thank you so much for your community leadership as well as all the department heads. You are always seen in the community, and that is very much a part of relationships with our citizens. Remind me again how you came up with the amount of raises that you all would get.
Well, the amount of raises was looking at Hernando and Olive Branch and South Haven, but I can't pay what every city, I can't pay 1 penny higher than everybody in every city. And I was like, well, we can, I get that, and my numbers are that, but, for probably another $200,000 to $300,000, I could pay a penny more than everybody in the other city, but I don't have that much money to work with. So when I went back and looked at that, but I just want you to understand, I'm the chief. I have a deputy chief that acts as a deputy chief / fire marshal. I have a fire inspector / acts as a captain. So everybody that works for me has to wear at least 2 to 3 hats. Each battalion chief has, one is kind of over equipment, the other one kind of takes over the maintenance, and I don't have a maintenance officer, I don't have a pub head officer, I don't have an EMS supervisor. We don't have all these positions, but when you look at that, the other cities do that, and in some areas, they do have all those categories. But I usually ask each one of my people to do 2 or 3 different jobs, or be in charge a little bit more than just answering the phone and trying to be there.
So was there a percentage rate or anything you added? Because it is very top-heavy, okay? So that's why I was wondering, was there any rhyme or reason to how you came up with these figures?
They were just following in guidelines of where other people were in their ballpark of their cities and where they were at and what their people did.
Okay.
What titles did they do?
Okay.
I do know over the years, there's been people that were terminated because they let their license expire and different things. So my admin assistant takes that on as a full thing. She monitors every month. Everybody there is notified 30 days prior to their driver's license expiring and told you need to get it and get it to them. So they have 30 days to get it to her, and if they let it expire, then they miss out on their EMSD license. And then there's their paramedic license and their EMT license. But that is one of the things it's kept up with. And helping with the other stuff at the firehouse. A lot of people call, they schedule pub ed through her. And she emails back and gets back with them and sets up those, if they just call us, and we pretty much go anywhere we're asked to go if we can work it in the schedule.
Yes, sir.
We go to the library every year, at least 2 times a year, and do something for Miss Carson at the library.
Yes, sir.
It's amazing what they do. Alderman Dupree.
So your guys do the job of 2 or 3 other people. Other cities have personnel to do what they do. So 3 jobs compared to 1 job per person.
Yeah, but I mean, there's other cities, they have their own thing and their own thing that they have to do, and they may have a lot more money to work with, so they get to have more. And that's fine, I'm working with my number. And where we're at tonight, I said I give you a balanced budget. I sit here and say that we fought this for the last 4 or 5 years to try to get the police, fire department moved up and be as equal as we could in the other areas before you, so.
Well-
That's what they're at, but I'm not asking to add any more staff for that and to do that
Chief.
other than just get people on the ground.
Chief, Board, I think that is very fair. If you got one man, one woman doing the job, but 3 other cities have one person for those jobs, I think it's fair to say that they're worth their money. That's my opinion.
Well, I want to commend Chief on the tight ship and the battalion chiefs at the tight ship at the fire department. Every one of y'all know how things go. You don't hear that from the fire department. They keep it straight. They take care of everything. It's run very efficiently. No gibberish, if you want to, that's the best word I can come up with. It's very, very professionally run. And I know Chief has said right here that he doesn't care about a raise. I think he does deserve a raise. And the battalion chiefs, they're relatively young. And they've grown with the fire department. And they see how a fire department should be run, thanks to Chief Limble. So I think we've got to keep them, especially because they're like the backbone that's coming up. We don't want to lose good trained people. I think what we're talking about here, if I understand what the board is saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, you don't object to the raises, it's just the size of the raise. Is that correct? Alderman Bledsoe.
I think the size maybe of the top 4, he can come down just a little bit on the top 4. Bottom ones, you know, they need, but, like I said, he's been around for 400 years.
Right behind you.
Not many more, though, I will say that.
No, don't say that.
Probably never come back up here and have to do this again.
No, don't say that, Chief. You got another year, another year. Alderman Bledsoe.
It's pretty much my last time to talk. But one other thing I will point out, and I do ask Steve Botts occasionally, he helps me with a few things, but the firemen take care of them 3 firehouses. You ain't never had to tell us to cut the grass.
Or the paint.
But we might want to contract that out next year.
I don't think it's wise to threaten the board.
It's getting to the point that we may just want to start contracting some of this out.
Oh, please don't do that. Alderman Klein.
We will move on. You can take my raise off the table tonight.
Alderman Klein.
Mayor, I want to commend Jim and the chief, because out of that meeting, Jim came back and then with that budget meeting the first time, was able to come up with, the chief says, hey, I can work with that. Just out of that meeting that we had, and you were there, Mayor. And I commend him doing that, and he just got creative on the way, moving the money around, but he's working within pretty much the budget that we agreed on. Because now we're just, arguing the point of, or discussing the point, I should say, of the top 4 positions. And I see where he's built in maybe 4%, because when Hernando does their thing, they might do 5, they might do 3. But it's still gonna keep you right there with Hernando, was, I guess, the bottom line, as far as your top step down. And I know you've been talking about leaving possibly at the end of this year or whatever, so you're really basically working on the next fire chief's salary. I commend you on that too. So, I have no problem with the way this is, because he's working within his budget. But at the same time, I do understand my fellow aldermen wanting to maybe, tweak some of those top numbers a little.
Anyone else? Alderman Young.
Chief, you might want to stand up and look at me when I'm talking about this one. There you go, that's better. There's some good points raised. I've been sitting back here listening. There's some very decent points raised all the way across. Very well. You got 29 years doing this, right?
I've been the fire chief for 20 years this year.
Yeah.
And
I understand. I got you. Hold on a second. I'm just gonna make a suggestion here. I'm not saying it's what you need to do, and something the board and the mayor, and this is day to day, but I'm gonna make a suggestion. I've been sitting over here running numbers, and one reason I've been so quiet, I got a hold of Mr. Bostic and went to school, so sitting here looking at some things. I would ask that maybe if you would take a $4,000 raise, if your deputy chief would take a $4,000 raise, your admin would take a $5,000 raise, and your inspector would take a $5,000 raise, and move that money back down like Mr. Alderman Bledsoe and everybody's talking about, move that money down and filter it. Because when you really look at it, the firefighter ones and the firefighter twos are $1, $1.50, $1.60 across the board raise. I wouldn't go on a house fire for that. I'm just looking at me. That's what I'm talking about. I'm just trying to look at a way to get you the money that you asked for, which is the same amount of money, but just move it down a little bit, move it around a little bit. Everybody gets a little bit. We're getting closer to the conversation to where y'all are mid-range of Hernando and Olive Branch. Still gets you in there. Hopefully next year, and I know we keep saying this, and I hate this, it's just kicking the damn can down the street, excuse me. But y'all need more. Police department needs more. Public service, just like Alderman Guy said, public service is our number one thing we got to take care of. And I don't want to contract no dadgum grass cutting. And I want a blue car, red, white, and blue for the parade, okay? Okay, well, we'll get it, But that's just something I would ask you to maybe.
I can go back and do that. We got
Just pencil that and see where it is. I'm not trying to cut anything out.
some of that stuff.
I'm just trying to, because
I don't
they're,
wanna pay my firefighter more than the lieutenant.
I agree. I 1,000% agree, but I mean, there's some really good points across there. I mean, I know, I understand, but just take a look at it, see if you can whittle a little bit more down lower. I don't want you lieutenants to suffer, or anybody, you know, conversation, so, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, we did. We absolutely did. We had the same issue with the police department, that's true.
Before I can do a whole lot, I gotta make sure that's the number we adopt tonight, if that's what's gonna go before the board. I don't want an $89,000 cut after tonight.
Well, you got $1 million raise.
No, I didn't.
Yeah, the fire department did.
$1 million truck to it, and 6 more people.
Anybody else? Alderman Bledsoe.
Now, let's see what we're gonna do.
Well,
Punt.
no, this is a workshop. This is a workshop, but we need to come on each page what we are gonna vote on. We don't need to be having meeting after meeting after meeting when it's just so few things. I was just gonna suggest if we gave Chief a $5,000 or $6,000 raise, that would put him up to about $91,000. And Deputy Chief, if you gave about a $6,000 raise, $7,000, that put him up around 83 or 84. And the administrator, you would have to give them about a $7,000, that put them about 53. That'd be roughly in the ballpark. Even though I don't like to compare to other cities, I don't want to take a chance on losing. I see the hole in my own argument. I see both sides of my own argument. I argue with myself. But I would suggest maybe the board consider that, and that would give you, but it's not going to be much difference. It's just a few $1,000s. Time you split it 15 or 16 people, it's not. Alderman Bledsoe.
But one thing you do need, the paramedics need to go up, because you keep losing them, and sometimes it's, the grass is green on the other side of the fence, or they just get tired of being a paramedic. So I think they need to go up a little bit more.
I do understand where you're at, but if you're gonna pay the paramedic more than the lieutenant that's gonna supervise them, that don't go good either. That's what happened in Hernando right now. So I can look at that.
Okay, what does the board want to do? Do y'all want, I have a feeling y'all would like to show your appreciation to the fire department for everything they do, just like all the other first responders, the police, everybody on a level is a first responder. When they're repairing pipes out there in the storms, when they're cutting trees, everything. But I think from hearing the conversations, everyone wants to give the chief and the deputy chief and fire and EMS and inspector captain a raise. You just disagree with the amount of the raise. And all the raises down below it, those are pretty good raises down below it. Those are pretty good raises. So, you know, we need some guidance from the board. What figure, I mean, it's gonna stay the $7,020,197. That's the only way to keep a balanced budget. You're just gonna be moving some money, a few $1,000s from the top down. You're gonna be moving what? Maybe six, maybe less than $20,000.
Hold on, Mayor, I'll get you that number.
All right, sir. Oh, Alderman, I think he's figuring something.
Yeah,
Alderman Boston.
With the $2,100 raise, that's $175 a month. With the EMT driver, the way you've got it set right now, it breaks down to $242 a month. The other ones, the paramedics, firefighters, $303 a month, all the way up $228 a month for driver one, driver two. Lieutenant, $495 a month, Lieutenant one, $634, battalion chief, $688. If we just increase the $2,100 on them to $4,200, which that would double that, and drop $5,000 off the top four, just take five, that'd be $20,000, then we could probably make up that difference on the bottom.
All right, you're talking about giving the top four $4,200 apiece. 5,000. 5,000 apiece. And the EMS guys can get $1 an hour, about $1,000 a year. 29. I must be on the wrong page.
Add $2,100 to each one of those, just double, because he's actually has more already figured in there by a little bit, by $100 and something dollars. But I'm just saying that would kind of make up the difference without me sitting there going through the whole mathematical formula of everything. But I think that would kind of give them a general idea of what we were trying to do and trying to get some things to the bottom guys and still keep them just not top heavy on them.
Top four positions increased by $5,000.
Everybody else, instead of 2,100 or whatever he's got, just make it a flat 42.
42. That's what
But
it started
you
at.
still you're only gonna have, if you increase the fire chiefs, you're only gonna have 5,000 extra. And if you do 82, that'd be seven, that's 12,000. And if you do 51, there's 9,000. That's 2,100.
21,000.
I just do that, and then, thank you, sir, and then 58 be 63, be 60, be 6. You're talking about $27,000 difference if you just do $5,000 across.
Whatever he's gonna take away from the top, he can just take the bottom ones and divide it however how many it is and give them that much more.
Are you talking about just the paramedics? Divided between 50 people?
That's what I'm saying, take whatever
So you're talking about, yeah, because with 27,000 divided by almost 60 people, it's not gonna be a great deal of money. No, I would just,
So that'll still be above the 2,100 that they're getting.
that would, yeah, but you gotta divide it by the number of people it is. Yeah, about
Yeah.
$300 or $400 more.
I would need to take this and work it by the hours. We pay them by the hour, and that's how my budget sheet works. But I mean, you have to go and start, you don't wanna overpay one person because he's over that person, but that's kinda where, and you look at this, a lieutenant makes right now he makes $20.12. I was proposing to go to 22, but I get what you're saying, move him to 22.25, and we make him do that. But there's more of them on that bottom than there is at that top. So that money, when you go down there, it goes quick in that budget sheet when you add 9 lieutenant. Well, it's fixing to be 12 with the new promotion.
That's why you get paid the big bucks. You can figure it out on that calculator, I'm sure.
Well, it's on a spreadsheet. We'll figure it out, but I will go back and come back with a different, I guess, a proposal on the next meeting. I may try to get it out email to you before next week, then you can look at it.
Now, Alderman Bostic has proposed $5,000 raise for the top 4 positions. The difference in what Chief had proposed, take that and split it between all the rest of the members of the department. That's correct. Okay, I got it. Now, is anyone willing to work with maybe instead of a $5,000 raise, a $6,000 raise? You're just talking about $4,000 difference for 4 people.
I'm good with that, Mayor. I think that's a good idea.
Can I poll the board so Chief will know what to do?
You can, Mr. Mayor. We're not voting on raises tonight anyway, so everyone's still free to change their mind once that vote comes up on the table.
Is anybody up here willing to consider a $6,000 raise for the top 4 positions? The difference between what the chief proposed, take it and split it between the rest of the department. Is anybody in favor of 6? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Well, the board's in favor of 6, Chief.
Okay, Mayor.
A $6,000 raise
Yes,
for the top 4 positions.
And a steak dinner.
Thank you. Does anybody want to take a smoke break?
Yes, please.
Yep. No, we're gonna have to go out front. Yeah, they got it. Have they opened it back up?
Everything else ought to be a piece of cake. Everything else should be easy then, right?
Okay, Mr. Jim. Next page, please, sir. Street Department.
The street department, again, but this was on the last budget workshop, the zero in vehicles, so their budget remains the same. And Mayor, as we were going through the budgets, I mean, we didn't stop and ask Mr. Chad or anybody, about their budgets. I don't know if you wanted to do that.
All right, we'll go back then. Mr. Chad, do you have anything different about your budget than what's proposed for the board?
Good evening, Board and Mayor, Mr. Mayor, and no, it's fine as proposed.
Thank you, sir. All right. Anybody else that I forgot to ask?
Well, the other ones were, Tara, finance.
Right, she
Now
said
we're
she's
on.
fine with hers.
Yeah, now we're on streets with Mr. Stephen.
That's what I said. All right, the street department, Mr. Box. You see your figures, and Mr. Jim said these are the exact figures they talked about the last time the board worked on them. Do you have any comments to make on this, sir?
Good evening, Board. No, I'm fine with budget as is.
Anybody have any questions for Mr. Box or Mr. Jim, or anybody about that? Alderman Bledsoe.
If you will, you talking about Mr. Box?
Yes, sir.
If you will, put that street sweeper back in there for later.
Yeah, we don't have it right now.
But it ain't been but 8 years.
How time flies, doesn't it? Okay, animal control, is Mr. Glenn down there?
Yes, just 1 second. Animal control, you'll see the two highlighted areas. We moved the vehicle expense up to professional services for what Mr. Glenn was talking about, what he would like to see in animal control. We moved that 29,000 up to professional services. We are trying to maneuver some vehicles around, and I really don't foresee the mayor's vehicle lasting that long, but Chief Poland has, it will be before the board, next board meeting, and don't want to steal her thunder, but she has 2 trucks that she is surplusing and is willing to move down, one going to the Parks Department and one going to Animal Control. Trucks are more appropriate for those departments to where we can get some cages in the back of the truck to have an extra spare vehicle in animal control, and Parks is always in need of trucks. So we are maneuvering some vehicles around in hopes to help the other departments.
And the professional service line, that's mostly veterinarian fees, a lot of it, isn't it?
Yes, and some of the other things that Mr. Glenn can speak to.
Does anybody have any, Alderman Bledsoe?
Are those trucks 4-door trucks or 2-door trucks?
I want to say they're both 2-door. I'm not positive, but trucks nonetheless.
A long time ago, I suggested anytime we buy a truck, make it a 4-door truck. That way when it gets old, we can hand it down and you can take your whole crew with you most of the time.
That was a good idea. Alderman Geis.
Those detective vehicles or the chief's old truck or?
No, sir, they both were seized, if I'm not mistaken. One's an '06 and one's an '09. But good vehicles either way.
Mayor,
Alderman Young.
Mr. Jim, didn't we put those 2 skateboards in there for park people to ride alongside the truck?
We can squeeze that in.
Okay.
Mayor,
Alderman Dupree.
if I can ask, go back to Mr. Drew's budget.
We haven't.
Oh, we hadn't got there yet. Thank you. It's coming. Oops.
He's like us, he's ready to, since y'all did so much work the last time, and the department heads have worked so much with administration, with Mr. Jim and all, it's going so much smoother doing it this way. And I think all of us want to continue with it and get home at a reasonable hour, and still do a good job. And I want to commend the board the way y'all have handled this. You have really done a great job. So that takes care of that. What's the next one, Mr. Jim? Is it parks? Well, I thought he said he was fine with his budget. All right, Mr. Glenn, are you okay with your budget?
I am. At this point now, I'm still trying to get the pricing for wellness exams, including those microchips that I discussed with the board last meeting, so that all of our animals do receive wellness immediately upon intake. Wellness is going to include heartworm preventatives, flea and tick treatment, and just basic vaccines. So once we can get that from Horn Lake Animal Shelter, we can find out if we have a go on that. But I do believe that my professional services will cover those expenses.
And I have a favor to ask of you, Mr. Andrews.
Yes, sir.
After we get through with the budget, it would be probably the 1st of October, if you would come before the board and, you know, lay out to them how you're doing things different and what your goals are down there. If you would, I sure would appreciate it.
Yes, sir. I'd be happy to.
Thank you, sir. Does anybody have any, Alderman Dupree?
So, Mr. Jim, you took out the $29,000 for that truck? That's what I heard?
Yes. It
Right.
moved up to add to the 45,000, which made that professional services 74,000.
Okay. I think that's what I said last time, if we could take that out, and that way you can implement this, the microchipping. So is this what you plan on doing?
Yes, sir. Moving that money is going to allow us to microchip every animal once they're released for adoption.
Good. That's what I would like to see. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Anything else, sir? Thank you, sir. Anybody else?
One thing that has been talked about is the Shelter Love software. If that is brought into play, that would fall into professional services. So there'll be a little jockeying of that 74,000 to make sure. I know they're looking at a couple different softwares.
But it still falls in the budget.
It would, but just like everybody's budget, sometimes you may have to do without some things. We're still unsure on all the pricing on the software that's coming in, but we're getting different prices on different software.
Well, I know that during the year, a lot of times we have to amend the budget to transfer from one line item to another within the department. They do that at every government, every level of government. So we're content with the dollar amount in the animal control. Okay, Mr. Jim, go on, please. I think Mr. Alderman Dupree is ready for Mr. Coleman.
Yes, parks from the last workshop, there is no change in the parks or the tournament, but Mr. Drew can speak to that.
Mr. Drew?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Board. I don't have any amendments to my proposed budget.
Alderman Dupree?
In your budget, does it call for more of the golf carts, work golf carts, that type of stuff? Because you're in desperate need of some. Those things are wore out.
Thank you, Alderman, for the question, but the equipment maintenance line, there's 3 specific items that we're looking to buy. They do not include any golf carts, but we can rent them from lads if we need additional for events. We currently have 2 working golf carts. But we need to get a new sod cutter, we need to get a new infield rake, which is like a three-wheel, the drag, and then we need to get another gator, so.
One that Alderman Bledsoe and I were in the other day. We barely made it back.
You rigged that.
Yeah, I know you did.
I think he's talking about my drive.
I believe he is, Alderman. I believe that's exactly what he's talking about.
Mayor,
Alderman Young.
just a question, I guess, for the board and also for Mr. Drew and you, of course. We located, and Mr. Jim probably gonna be interested in this too, we located some funds that we didn't know we had last year. Would this be a good place to infiltrate some of that for like curb and gutter along our main drags and maybe what he's talking about, what he needs, and a new drag and a new golf cart? Would this be a good place maybe to identify some of that money for those? It's sitting there.
I know I'm like you, that I like to have money in the bank. But we don't know what the coming year is gonna bring. Just like all of us in our personal lives, we don't know what's gonna, maybe as it progresses through the year, the board will willing to consider something.
I mean, that's fine. I was just saying it was the money that we allocated we didn't know we had.
But then you're gonna start from each department.
Oh, this money is only an economic development fund. It can only be used for economic development.
Well, I don't know if a golf cart would be economic development. I haven't argued, but I disagree with our attorney that I think economic development funds ought to pay for paving, like
Okay.
that main drag. And the parking lot looks good, Mr. Drew. Y'all haven't seen it. Was that slurry seal on it? Is that what they still call it, slurry seal? So they used to call it years ago,
It's just a seal coat.
seal coat.
Yes, sir.
Paint.
But I know I've asked Mr. Billy several times, economic development funds be good for roads? He says, no, we're not allowed to do that. So if you're talking about gutters and paving and all
Urban,
that,
I mean, I would think, I mean, the argument I would have, and I'm sure Mr. Billy probably won't get three eyes when I say this, but that's one of our economic jewels in this city. And I would think that if we did a ballpark or two with the girls softball and maybe did this curb and gutter and improved our roads instead of having a washed out road the way we have through the park, I don't know why that would not be an economic development item.
I'm gonna defer to, I've lost that argument several times, so I'm gonna defer to Mr.
Mr. Mayor, I think you were talking in general, but Alderman Young's talking about Latimer Lakes, and I took no issue with spending hotel motel tax money on Latimer Lakes, because I think, without question, it is an attribute of the city.
Thank you. That's what thank you, sir.
And I think we used hotel motel tax money to pay
Well,
for
yeah, because we had that we found that we dragged forward. I would, before that money gets sliced and diced and rolled away, I think just my redneck head now, just that we need to allocate some of this to spend on that park, to make that park better, to bring it up to snuff. The curb and gutter, keep people from parking on there, they're tearing up our asphalt. Redo the road, we're already redoing the road, but I mean, if we can put a bridge out to the fountain so Tommy can hobble out there to check it if he has to. I'm just messing. But stuff that we need to, maybe we need to do a ballpark or do two ballparks, interfield, so the girls can do some softball, so we can get more. I'm just saying, maybe we just need to, I didn't know if this would be the place to infiltrate that and say, hey, let's do this, or do we just do it, like you said, at another board meeting?
To me, it seems like, to me, it seems like if we're using economic development funds money, the way we've done it all in the past, as each thing comes up. In the budget, there's the $355,000. How the board decides to spend it as each specific instance comes up, you don't mark it out ahead of time. I think that has served us well. I think that's a great idea, but I would think that hopefully that the board would like to just leave it like it is and go along. Alderman Bledsoe.
This is for Billy. Billy, the golf carts, they wouldn't be on economic development, would it? Because it's at Latham Lakes.
I was gonna say that may be a stretch, yes, sir.
Okay, well, I was trying.
Good try, though, good try. Alderman Dupree.
Going along with what you said, that we can't do that, but take some of the money that could be allocated as economical development money, put it into his budget, then take some out of his budget and put it into the golf carts. You can't do that? Oh, well, I'll try.
It was a good try, good try. Anybody else? Anybody else have a question about parks? Mr. Jim, go ahead, please, sir.
Okay. The 901 budget, the only line item that is highlighted, I had mentioned earlier, the municipal street fund, when I met with Vince today, we talked about timing. It's taken a little bit longer to get, Gibson Paving is working right now on roads. Lehman Roberts will start phase 2. And then just the timing of those two, it's going to carry into this next year. We had budgeted 1.5 million, you can see there on that line item for this year. We've only spent 124,000, so that is carrying over. The projects that we have going are going to run into next year. We'll finish out the paving this fall with Gibson Paving and Lehman Roberts, and then whoever wins the bid for year 2, phase 1, that will come out next year. So that raised that amount to almost $4 million. So you will see the overall operating fund has jumped. It jumped a little over $2 million because of those funds that we added back up in the revenue. Sorry to make everybody dizzy. But we added a little over 2.1 million from the internet sales funds that we have. So our budget proposal for this year for operating fund is $30,272,937. As was mentioned, there are other breakdowns of our budget. $1 million goes to the library, which will be a little over $235,000.
Is that required by law?
The board adopted that years ago.
Well, I know that there's been nationwide, the American Library Association, now headed by a woman who claims she's a Marxist, and that several states have pulled out of the American Library, including Texas. And I don't know, getting back to Alderman Bostic's comments, I don't know what's in the libraries, the books. Nobody's a bigger supporter of the library than I am. Everybody on here, we even got a librarian sitting here. But I don't understand the role of the American Library Association in connection with ours.
And my wife's a librarian too, so, but, I mean, we do have different, comparing DeSoto County libraries to others, I think we have a great system. But I will mention, I heard on the radio that goes right along with Alderman Bostic, and I didn't get a chance to look up Murfreesboro, but I heard a segment on Murfreesboro Board of Aldermen adopted an ordinance, and I forgot what they called it, but it regulated really the quality of books, and I'll have to go back and figure out what they called it, but it was like a decency ordinance, and they had 2 books that was not going to make the library cut because of the Murfreesboro ordinance that was in place, which I thought was rather interesting, but it had to do with sensitive topics.
Well, of course, we'd have to find out whether Murfreesboro owned their library because we don't own the library. We just support the library. This board is very generous. A mill, $236,000, and the library does a wonderful job. Nothing against the people right down here. I don't know what's the next echelon above them. I don't know what their philosophy is on what they want to expose our youth to. I don't know. Your wife doesn't work anymore, does she? She retired? I was hoping she might know, but.
Well, one of the reasons that brought that up, Mayor, I was just wondering that if we do a meal, not to be in comparison with the rest of the municipalities in the county, but do you have any idea what each municipality does? Is that an agreement with the county and all the municipalities to do one meal for the library system?
Well, Billy could probably speak to this, but there has been agreement with the county in helping maintain those facilities. We do have a breakdown on there. You know, the professional service line, we help maintain the grounds and everything. So, and then the library itself for operating did request the $140,250. So Billy could speak to the agreement that may be countywide. I do know 2 years ago, I believe the city of South Haven voted to decrease their funds and put it into signage.
I don't know, Alderman Bostic. I've looked at South Haven's millage before, and they don't break it down as a separate millage levy for the library. I think it's included in whatever they levy for their general fund expenses. So we would have to look at their budget to figure out exactly how much they pay or support their library.
As tonight is a workshop, would y'all like us to find out more about this? Because you don't have to vote on the budget tonight. The vote on the budget will be in the next meeting.
Well, Mayor, excuse me.
Alderman Bostic.
I brought up a lot of major points and asked the director a lot of questions when they were here before. And one of the key things that I felt like, I don't know how it can be addressed, and I think it would have to go to a state level, but when you have people, children especially, check out underage children, and I'm talking 10, 11, 12, 13 years old, checking out things from the library or getting stuff on an e-reader, and as a parent or a guardian sees a difference in that child, they do not have the right as a parent to go up to the library and find out what their child is checking out. The library cannot give them that information, and what she told us, that's due to the First Amendment. But I feel like as a parent, that child's your responsibility until they're old enough, 18 years old, to go. Or they decide, I'm going anyway, and you say good riddance. But you're responsible for your child. Even when at my age, at 60, I'm still responsible for my children that are in their 30s to a certain degree. But especially when they're under 18 years old, they're my responsibility. So if my child is checking out something, it would be nice if we had to go to a state level. And that's my hard part of me wanting to support the library fully, along with there's a lot of things in the library that the county really put it to them here about a month or two ago about filling out the forms, and they had to come before the board, and they really put the hammer down on the library system. I could speak on it from a personal level because my wife was with the library system for a long time, and I pray and I thank God that she's not part of it anymore because of the values and Christian values that we have, to be able to have to support some of the things that you have to work there. So, I mean, I'm not totally against supporting the library. They do some great things for the city. But it's just tough you're looking at $235,000 $235,000, and if every I mean, they're still gonna run without this money. They're gonna get funding to do this. I think sometimes it's just, out of obligation, the alderman just, you know, wherever they made that agreement that we would do that, then we've just kind of stuck to it, so I'm not sure how we would go about decreasing that, or how much we would do that, or not do anything at all. I just wanted to let you know how my personal feelings on that.
Thank you, sir, and I understand, I think everybody on this board understands that times have changed, and things are available in the library now that definitely wasn't there when I was there. And for all of us sitting up here, and if you would like, if the board would like, I can contact, Supervisor Caldwell was working with us about who's responsible for what expenses down there at the library. And if you would like to, but since this is not a vote tonight, I can find out and provide the information to the board members exactly the answer to your questions. Would y'all want to just move on from this tonight until we find that information? Alderman Johnson.
I agree with Alderman Bostic, and as you said, Mayor, the times in the world has changed to what our kids are viewing and the content that they have access to. I will say that on the same level of confidentiality, we do have something similar in the public school. However, I do have some control over that because I order everything that comes in and I know what is there, but I cannot tell a child, you cannot check this out because it's not on your level or it's not something that you can be reading. So if that's the kind of power and the things that we do on a school or district level, I know that, you know, they really, it's out of their hands in a public library as to say, you can't check this out. And again, like you said, because of the First Amendment.
But they don't have to stock that book then, is that correct?
Well, again, the times have changed. We want to be sure that everybody has access to what they need. Just because your child has not been exposed to a certain lifestyle or a certain aspect of things that goes on here today does not mean that, you know, another child has not been exposed and their parents will be accepting to what they're reading and seeing.
But, I mean, the library gets to decide what they put in there.
By some
being
means, they can.
I'm not being afraid, because you're with the public school, and this
Yes.
is
Yes.
this is not associated
Right,
with the school,
right.
so it's unfair, but I
Yes,
just,
yes, but there is certain things that they have to have in there.
thank you, ma'am. You have something, Alderman?
I want to comment on, Mr. Jim's findings or thing on the radio about the Decency Act. Is that just the library, or could that be the school system, or do we have any control over that?
We don't have any control over the school system. They're completely separate.
I mean, for like the city, I guess, what I'm saying, it's gotta be city-owned for us to have any control over it, right?
Yeah, you'd have to go to the school board on your personal level and speak to the school board about if it was in the school.
Before I forget, for the 10th time, South Haven passed an ordinance related to homelessness, and I guess you would say loitering. And I took the liberty of contacting Mayor Musselwhite to see if we could get a copy of that. And I think he was nice enough to send it to Mr. Campbell. And with the board's permission, I would like to ask Mr. Campbell to go through, and after we finish everything up about the budget, get the budget laid to rest and voted on, consider that, like Mayor Musselwhite said, we don't have a problem, let's stop it before we do have a problem. And asking Mr. Campbell to check into it and give his opinion of it. They just passed it, so I don't even know if it would hold up in court. I don't know. But would you be kind enough just to, thank you, Alderman Bostic.
There was a gentleman on the Bullfrog corner yesterday holding a sign, just to let you know.
What was it? we actually had a business that had a person like that. Now, all of us are sorry for people who are truly homeless. Some people decide to be that way. I was raised by the railroad track, and hobos rode the trains all the time. Yeah. But at one business, we went up there to see, what to do, what they want us to do, what can do. They didn't want us to do anything. They put carts out there and made them a shelter. So we'll leave that on Mr. Billy, if that's all right with him. Yes, sir. All right. Mr. Jim, go ahead. I took up too much of your time.
All right, that is the library fund. The hotel motel tax, you'll see is 355,000 in revenue and same in expense. Everything's a balanced department. The debt service fund, I'd mentioned to you, there's no change in that. We did have a bond that rolled off, which is part of the City Hall first being built 20-something years ago. So we are dropping down to debt service for the year of $1,412,000. Yeah, I have mentioned that next year we will have potentially the City Hall and the animal shelter bond rolling on, and when those two both come together, it's going to be about $700,000 added to that. Just looking at the big picture, with that and some other revenue probably potentially rolling off and paying PERS for 12 months, we're probably looking at starting the 2025 budget off about $2.2 million less to work with than we have today. So just projecting ahead on that. The utility budget, when meeting with Vince, we talked about timing again on some of these projects. I actually thought the projects were going to kick off a lot sooner. So this budget decreased. Vince is talking about a lot of these projects that will come up later on down here. He is thinking a year from this month, so next August, those being awarded. I thought they would, because they've already started some engineering work on those. So that figure decreased the ARPA funds that we are going to be utilizing to a little over 3.9. And the figures down here that are highlighted did change based on Vince's timeline. A couple of them did go up. The Twin Lakes Water Improvement, which is the filtration system, went up. And the last item, the municipal water line replacement project, went up because we've done a lot of engineering for that. They're actually already working on the Twin Lakes water filtration system. They're just waiting on the tank to finish that. But next year that should be complete with that 1.172 budgeted. So you'll see we changed the figure on the infiltration inflow, which studies the leakage in our water getting into our sewer lines and stopping that, which would save our citizens money because we wouldn't be treating rainwater instead of just the sewer water. The Holly Hills water plant, those three right there, the Meadowbrook and the Hurt Road, those decreased a little bit because they'll have some engineering in '24, but the major upgrades will take place in '25. But overall, the overall budget did increase to $41,886,437 for our overall budget, with just the time frame and scope of these projects were the main reason these changed.
Alderman Geis, did he leave? Yeah. Be careful. Yes, sir.
Oh.
Thank you, Alderman. All right, anybody have any questions, Mr. Jim, on the last things he covered? There's some major projects, and there's gonna be, a lot of them are water, sanitation. Hopefully, if the I&I infiltration will save our citizens, money, because rainwater, instead of going into them, it won't be in them, or not to the degree.
I did want to just mention the millage calculation sheet. Every year I give that to you to show you how our millage is calculated. With the homestead being taken out, that the homestead amount was over 10 million, 10.5 million, but you can see our assessed value is 245,746,787, which calculates down there 1 mil generates 235,168. Then that figure is broken down once you take out the debt service, and then down at the bottom you'll see we do put away some rainy day funds, library fund, the fire millage, and then our debt service. We end up with a little over 9 million, and then that is split between. Not sure what I did there. That is split between a lot of the funds at the top of the sheet. Daniel, don't know what I did.
Okay. Before we move on, does anybody have any questions or comments about the proposed budget? Sir? Book it. I want to thank the department heads. I want to thank everybody in the administration that worked so hard to bring this before the board. And I certainly want to thank the board for working so diligently to provide our citizens with a balanced budget that provides for their protection and for their enjoyment and quality of life. I certainly appreciate you doing it. All right, the next item on the agenda is citizens' remarks. Do we have any?
No, sir.
All right, number 5 is the mayor correspondence. I just said that. So does any of the aldermen have any correspondence or want to have anything to say? All right, department head correspondence. Any department head had some more comments or questions to make? Anybody on the board have any comments or questions for any department head? Yes, sir, Alderman Bostic.
This is for Jim. I was just curious, where did you come up with the $2,100 when you started with zero? Where did that calculation come to come to $2,100 for everybody? How did you come up with that formula of that amount?
That's just what was mentioned to give as a flat increase, and we've done 2,100 in the since 2015. We've done that twice, and we've done 1,100 once. But it was just a figure that has been proposed. The police budget that was first turned in was with a 2,100 raise. So when everybody always talks about flat raises, you know, that's one of the figures we've always looked at and seeing if we could calculate that back into the budget.
I think, did we talk about it at the meeting when it came up? 2,100 was just thrown out there to work with?
We have, it has been mentioned that 2,100 as the preferred flat raise for everybody.
So there's no formula for that? That was just a magic number out of the air saying they're gonna make it 2,100? Okay.
Correct.
That's fine. Okay.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chad.
I'd run the numbers before on the 2,100, and in a regular work a year, there's like 2,080 hours. So my guess or stab at it is 2,100. And when you equate it or divide it by that number of worked,
Dollar hour.
it's about $1 an hour, yeah.
Thank you, Chad.
Thank you, sir. Okay, anything else, Alderman? All right. Engineer. Not here? Not here. Mr. Billy, do you have anything for the board, sir?
Mr. Mayor, I've had some information come to me since I've been at this meeting that I would like to relay to you and the board, possibly in executive session, but maybe if we could just have a determination of executive session.
All right. Is there a motion for a closed determination?
Mayor, I make a motion for closed determination.
Motion by Alderman Geis. Is there a second? Second by Alderman Bledsoe. Was there any discussion? Roll call, please.
Alderman Young. Alderman Dupree.
Aye.
Alderman Johnson.
Aye.
Alderman Bostic.
Aye.
Alderman Geis.
Aye.
Alderman Bledsoe. Alderman Klein.
Aye. Motion carries 7 in favor and none opposed. Did y'all want us to ask people to leave, or do y'all want us to step in that little cubby hole right over yonder?
It will only take a couple of minutes.
Want to step in that cubby hole? Excuse us, ladies and gentlemen. Go ahead, Mr. Billy. Do we have a motion to come out of executive, closed determination? Motion by Alderman Young, second by Alderman Dupree. Is there any discussion? Roll call, please.
Alderman Klein.
Aye.
Alderman Bledsoe.
Aye.
Alderman Geis.
Aye.
Alderman Bostic.
Aye.
Alderman Johnson.
Aye.
Alderman Dupree.
Aye.
Alderman Young.
Motion carries 7 in favor, none opposed. As there is no other business on the agenda for this honorable board, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Mayor, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
We have a motion by Alderman Bostic to adjourn. Do we have a second? Second by Alderman Young. Is there any discussion? Roll call, please.
Alderman Young. Alderman Dupree.
Aye.
Alderman Johnson.
Aye.
Alderman Bostic.
Aye.
Alderman Geis.
Aye.
Alderman Bledsoe. Alderman Klein.
Aye.
Motion carries 7 in favor, none opposed. Ladies and gentlemen, we are adjourned.